Welcome back to my channel. Today we will learn about the issue that has rocked the world of ABC's General Hospital. In this intense and twisting saga, secrets, vengeance, and long-buried pain come crashing to the surface. Over the course of these dramatic events, a chain reaction set off by a single, fateful decision has forever altered the lives of several key characters. Let's dive straight into the story and follow every heart-pounding moment as it unfolds. Several weeks ago, Danny heard alarming news from Rocco, news that would ignite a burning desire for revenge in his heart. Rocco revealed that Cyrus was not only a prime suspect in the murder of Sam, a case that had gripped the community, but also that Cyrus was believed to be the one who had killed Danny's own mother. This shocking revelation left Danny reeling. The idea that the man he blamed for his deepest pain was still alive was unbearable. Determined to get answers and to exact his own form of justice, Danny resolved that he must confront Cyrus, no matter the cost. Fueled by raw emotion and haunted by the memories of his mother's untimely death, Danny sought out Cyrus. When the two finally came face to face, tension crackled in the air. Danny launched into a forceful confrontation, accusing Cyrus of the heinous crimes that had tormented his life for so long. His voice, trembling with a mix of anger and sorrow, pierced the silence as he demanded that Cyrus confess to his crimes. Cyrus, ever enigmatic, replied with a few cold, measured words that only deepened the mystery. His reply was laced with an unsettling calm, a tone that hinted at dangerous secrets and dark ambitions. At that crucial moment, as the confrontation threatened to spiral out of control, Jason appeared seemingly out of nowhere. With impeccable timing, Jason intervened and saved Danny from what could have become a lethal encounter. Recognizing the volatile nature of the situation, Jason swiftly pulled Danny away from Cyrus. In the confusion, Jason's presence proved essential. Had he not arrived, there was every chance that Cyrus might have escalated the encounter and inflicted further harm upon the already anguished Danny. After the brief confrontation, Jason took Danny home. Once safely inside, Jason sternly advised Danny to leave Cyrus alone. He warned him repeatedly that Cyrus was an extremely dangerous individual, whose shadowy past and unpredictable nature could lead to disastrous consequences if provoked further. Jason reminded Danny that the police were now handling the investigation into Cyrus's alleged crimes, and that any interference could only jeopardize everything. On the surface, Danny agreed with Jason's caution. However, deep within, Danny harbored a burning certainty. He believed, beyond all doubt, that Cyrus had indeed killed his mother. This inner conviction festered in Danny's heart, growing stronger with every passing moment. It became clear to him that letting Cyrus continue to live was simply unacceptable. Unable to suppress his need for retribution, Danny devised a daring plan that he believed would finally bring an end to Cyrus's reign of terror. Late one fateful night, when the world outside lay shrouded in darkness, Danny quietly slipped into Jason's room. There, amid the shadows, he managed to take Jason's gun without arousing any suspicion. With the stolen weapon clutched tightly in his trembling hands, Danny set out on his dangerous mission. His destination was Cyrus's house, and his goal was as clear as it was grim. He intended to kill Cyrus while he slept, ensuring that the man he held responsible for his mother's death would never harm another soul again. Stealthily, Danny approached Cyrus's residence under the cover of night. Every step he took was laden with a heavy mix of anger, grief, and a grim determination that brooked no compromise. His mind replayed the devastating loss of his mother, and every fiber of his being screamed for justice. Danny imagined the finality of ending Cyrus's life, believing that in doing so he could put an end to the cycle of pain that had haunted him for so long. However, fate had a different twist in store for him that night. As Danny crept into Cyrus's house, he anticipated finding his target fast asleep, vulnerable and unprotected. But to his utter shock, he discovered that Cyrus was not asleep at all. Instead, Cyrus was fully awake, alert, and seemingly waiting for Danny's arrival. With an unsettling calm, Cyrus addressed Danny, revealing that he had known all along that Danny would come. His voice, smooth and deliberate, carried a sinister message. Cyrus's true intention was not merely to survive the night but to draw Danny into his fold. He aimed to brainwash Danny, to lure him into joining his cult-like following. In that moment, Cyrus's words dripped with a dangerous allure, a promise of belonging to something greater, something dark and all-encompassing. For a fleeting moment, Danny was taken aback by the hypnotic pull of Cyrus's rhetoric. The seductive nature of Cyrus's speech seemed to seep into Danny's thoughts, threatening to override the righteous fury that had driven him there. It was as though the very essence of Cyrus's malevolence had reached out to ensnare him, inviting him to embrace a twisted ideology that promised power, belonging, and an escape from his deep-seated pain. In that perilous instant, Danny's mind wavered on the brink of surrender. Yet, amid the seductive cadence of Cyrus's voice, a powerful memory flashed through Danny's consciousness, the memory of Sam, whose tragic fate had set him on this path of vengeance. The recollection of Sam's loss was like a beacon of clarity, shattering the hypnotic spell that threatened to engulf him. In a sudden burst of resolve, Danny shook off the dangerous allure of Cyrus's words. With a steely determination that came from years of suppressed grief and burning desire for justice, Danny pulled the stolen gun from his grasp and pointed it directly at Cyrus. The atmosphere grew heavy as the decisive moment unfolded. Without a hint of hesitation, Danny squeezed the trigger. The sound of the gunshot echoed ominously in the still night air, a sound that would forever mark the end of Cyrus's manipulative reign. Cyrus, caught completely off guard by Danny's lethal action, fell to the ground in a cascade of crimson, his body convulsing briefly before lying still in a pool of blood. The scene was brutal, sudden, and irrevocable. Cyrus had been killed in the act of what Danny believed was justified vengeance. Meanwhile, as the night wore on, Jason, who had been keeping a careful eye on Danny, awoke to find that Danny was nowhere to be seen. A sinking feeling gripped him when he also discovered that his own gun was missing from his room. The realization that something dire had occurred set Jason's instincts into high gear. Piecing together the chain of events with mounting dread, Jason immediately deduced that Danny must have taken the gun and gone to confront Cyrus. With no time to lose, Jason rushed out, his heart pounding with anxiety and regret. He sped to Cyrus's house, and what he found there confirmed his worst fears. Cyrus lay dead, his lifeless body sprawled in a gruesome display of blood, evidence of the violent confrontation that had transpired moments earlier. Overwhelmed by the gravity of the situation and the inescapable reality of what had been done, Jason knew he had to act quickly. Realizing that the chain of events could unravel further and that the authorities might soon be on the scene, Jason made a heart-wrenching decision in a desperate bid to protect Danny. With a heavy heart and a mind clouded by both shock and paternal concern, Jason resolved that Danny must disappear from sight before the consequences could fully catch up with him. In an instant, he called the police and, in a final, anguished act of sacrifice, confessed that he was the murderer. Jason's confession was meant to divert suspicion away from Danny, ensuring that the young man would not bear the full weight of the law for an act driven by a heart burdened with grief and vengeance. As the police arrived and took Jason into custody, Danny, hidden in the shadows, watched in horror. The sight of Jason, whom he regarded as a father figure, being arrested for a crime he had not committed filled him with an overwhelming sense of regret and despair. The shock of that night sent ripples through the community of Port Charles. News of the violent confrontation and the subsequent arrest spread like wildfire, leaving friends, family, and acquaintances in a state of disbelief. The revelation that Cyrus, a man shrouded in mystery and suspicion, had been killed in such a dramatic and unexpected manner ignited a flurry of questions. How could a young man like Danny, driven by the painful loss of his mother and the burning desire for retribution, have taken a life in cold blood? And what would become of the investigation now that Jason had sacrificed himself in an effort to protect him? As the days turned into nights, the police launched a comprehensive investigation into the events that had transpired. Forensic experts scoured the scene at Cyrus's residence, gathering evidence, analyzing bullet trajectories, and piecing together every detail of that fateful encounter. Every fragment of evidence, from the stolen gun to the blood spatter patterns, was meticulously documented in an effort to reconstruct the sequence of events. Detectives interviewed witnesses and combed through surveillance footage, striving to understand the motivations and emotions that had driven Danny to commit such a drastic act. The investigation revealed that the night's events were not merely the product of spontaneous rage, but rather the culmination of years of hidden pain, grief, and a desperate longing for justice. Within the labyrinth of police reports and forensic analysis, one fact remained indisputable: Cyrus had been killed by a gunshot fired by someone who was determined, beyond all doubt, that Cyrus was responsible for heinous crimes, including the murder of Danny's mother and the mysterious death of Sam. The evidence, though shrouded in the ambiguity of conflicting testimonies, painted a picture of a young man pushed to the brink by loss and manipulated by a desire for vengeance. Yet, beneath this veneer of retribution lay an even deeper tragedy, a tragedy of a broken system, of a community where secrets festered and old wounds never truly healed. As the investigation continued, the community of Port Charles was left to grapple with the duality of their emotions. On one hand, there was a sense of grim satisfaction that Cyrus, a figure long suspected of dark deeds, was no longer a threat. On the other hand, there was a profound sadness at the loss of potential redemption, a hope that maybe, just maybe, if given the chance, Cyrus might have found a way to change. But for Danny, that hope was long dead. Every memory of his mother's gentle smile and every recollection of the promises made in the wake of her death fueled his resolve, and there was no turning back. Danny, now burdened with the weight of his own actions, found himself in a relentless internal struggle. The guilt of having taken a life, no matter how justified it seemed in the heat of his grief, gnawed at him day and night. Every quiet moment was haunted by the image of Cyrus's lifeless body and the echo of Jason's selfless confession. Danny's dreams were plagued by visions of his mother's face, urging him to seek forgiveness, and by the memory of Jason's sacrifice, a sacrifice that now stood as a monument to the high price of revenge. The once clear path of retribution had blurred into a labyrinth of regret and sorrow, leaving Danny isolated in a prison of his own making. Back in Port Charles, the police's investigation took on new urgency. With Jason's confession now a pivotal piece of evidence, the authorities began to unravel the layers of deception that had masked the true nature of Cyrus's crimes. Rumors circulated rapidly through the town's tight-knit community. Neighbors whispered in hushed tones about the dangerous man Cyrus had been, speculating on the depths of his involvement in a series of violent crimes. Some even questioned whether Cyrus's attempts to brainwash Danny into joining a sinister cult were part of a broader, more insidious agenda. The collective shock of the revelation spurred many to demand accountability, and the town's residents found themselves embroiled in debates about justice, retribution, and the limits of vigilantism. As the investigation deepened, a myriad of details emerged that only further complicated the narrative. Forensic reports indicated that the bullet that ended Cyrus's life had been fired at close range, suggesting that Danny's attack was both deliberate and calculated. Witnesses recalled that Danny's demeanor in the moments before the confrontation had been marked by an intensity that bordered on despair. Meanwhile, surveillance footage captured fleeting images of a shadowy figure, Danny himself, as he moved stealthily through the night, a silent specter on a mission of retribution. Every piece of evidence was meticulously catalogued, each detail a reminder that the chain of events was a tragic inevitability born of long-suppressed pain. Despite the overwhelming evidence pointing to a tragic and impulsive act, the investigation also revealed the profound influence of external forces. Cyrus, it appeared, had cultivated an aura of charisma and danger that had drawn Danny in from the start. His chilling words, intended to seduce and manipulate, had nearly ensnared Danny in a web of ideologies that promised power and belonging. In a cruel twist of fate, that same manipulation, designed to recruit a new follower, had instead awakened within Danny the fierce determination to right the wrongs of his past. It was a battle of wills, a contest between the seductive allure of darkness and the unyielding light of a son's love for his deceased mother. As the community struggled to come to terms with the violent events of that night, the fallout began to ripple outward. Families gathered in solemn vigils, mourning not only the loss of Cyrus, but also the loss of innocence that such violence represented. Public meetings were held, where citizens demanded that justice be served swiftly and decisively. The story of that night became a rallying cry, a reminder that even in the heart of Port Charles, where secrets are buried deep, the truth always finds a way to emerge. In the midst of all this, Danny remained a silent, tormented figure, unable to escape the weight of his actions and the inexorable pull of regret. For Jason, now behind bars, the repercussions of his self-sacrifice continued to be felt throughout the community. His confession, meant to shield Danny from legal consequences, instead cast a long shadow over his own reputation. Colleagues and friends debated the morality of his decision, questioning whether his willingness to take the blame was a noble act of protection or a misguided attempt to control the narrative. In the sterile confines of a police interrogation room, Jason's face betrayed a deep-seated sorrow. A sorrow for the life he once led, for the trust he had placed in others, and for the high cost of his sacrifice. His fate, now in the hands of the justice system, hung like a dark omen over the troubled future of Port Charles. As the investigation presses on, and as the community awaits the final verdict on this series of events that have upended lives, one overarching truth remains clear: the quest for vengeance, however justified it may seem in the heat of momentary grief, invariably comes at an immeasurable cost. Danny's story is not just one of retribution, it is a tragic narrative of a young man caught in the crossfire of emotions too powerful to tame. The relentless pursuit of justice, fueled by the pain of personal loss, has led him down a path from which there is no easy return. The memory of his mother, the echo of Sam's tragic fate, and the weight of a life taken in the dark all converge to form a tapestry of regret that will continue to haunt him for years to come. In the final analysis, as the police close in on the remaining fragments of evidence and as the community of Port Charles grapples with the profound implications of that violent night, the legacy of these events will be etched indelibly into the history of General Hospital. The truth about Cyrus's dark past, his manipulative attempts to ensnare vulnerable souls, and the circumstances that drove Danny to such a drastic act of violence will be debated, dissected, and remembered as a turning point, a moment when the fragile balance of justice and retribution was irrevocably shattered. Meanwhile, Jason's sacrifice, intended as an act of protection, now stands as a somber reminder of the high price that is often paid when the pursuit of love and justice collides with the darkest corners of human nature. As we conclude today's in-depth exploration of this tragic and riveting saga on ABC's General Hospital, one thing is abundantly clear. In Port Charles, every secret, every hidden betrayal, and every act of vengeance sends shockwaves that ripple far beyond the confines of personal vendettas. The story of Danny, Cyrus, and Jason is a stark reminder that the path to justice is often fraught with irreversible consequences, and that even the noblest intentions can lead to outcomes that shatter lives and alter destinies. For Danny, the guilt and regret of that night will serve as a constant burden, a reminder that in the quest to right the wrongs of the past, one must be wary of the cost in human lives. For Jason, the sacrifice he made will forever be a part of his legacy, a legacy that may one day be vindicated or condemned by the unyielding scrutiny of justice. And for the community of Port Charles, the reverberations of that fateful night will continue to serve as a warning that the shadows of our past, if left unchallenged, can come back to haunt us in the most violent and unexpected ways. Thank you for joining me today as we delved into this long and harrowing chapter of ABC's General Hospital. Stay tuned for more updates as this dramatic narrative continues to unfold, and remember, sometimes, the pursuit of truth and justice is a journey that leads us into the very heart of darkness, where every decision has consequences that echo far beyond the moment. Until next time, keep watching, and stay safe.